My sister pushed me down a hospital staircase because she couldn't stand me getting attention for my college scholarship. My parents called it an accident until security footage proved otherwise. I was 6 steps from the landing when Ivy shoved me. 12 concrete stairs, 1 second of silence, and then the world shattered. My head hurted. My arm twisted at a grotesque angle, and above me my sister stood motionless, watching not in panic, not in fear, but with a smile. Then came 5 words I will never forget. You deserved it. I am Claire, 22 female, and this is about my sister Ivy, 20 female, and the moment that changed everything. To understand what happened, you must first understand my family dynamics. My parents, Diane and Richard, have always treated Ivy as if she walked on water. She is the baby, the miraculous child born after years of trying for a second child. Meanwhile, I've been the scapegoat since her birth. Every broken dish, every misplaced object, and every difficulty in the house eventually became my fault. Ivy quickly discovered that she could do no wrong in their eyes. Favoritism was smothering. Ivy purchased luxury things while I browsed at thrift stores. She received a nice new automobile for her 16th birthday. I had to work 2 part-time jobs to afford my own beaten-up Honda. When she failed her classes, they hired costly tutors. When I struggled, they advised me to strive harder. The worst thing was not even the material possessions. It was how they consistently rejected my emotions, accomplishments, and basic existence. Ivy benefited from this dynamic. She would purposefully smash things and blame me, knowing that our parents would believe her without doubt. She'd borrow my things, misplace them, and then scream crocodile tears when I was unhappy. She once deleted my entire college application essay the night before it was due, blaming a malfunction on her laptop. Our parents chastised me for not backing up my work. But the incident in the hospital that was a new low even for Ivy. It began 3 weeks ago when I was accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship. It wasn't a full ride, but it was plenty to make my ambition of studying journalism financially viable. I was over the moon. For once, I thought my folks would be proud of me. I was mistaken. When I presented them the acceptance letter during dinner, Dad barely looked up from his plate. "That's nice, honey," he said in the same tone you'd use when someone mentions the weather. Mom was more direct. "I hope you thought about how you'll pay for the rest. We can't aid you in the same way that we helped Ivy with her college fund." Ivy, then a student in high school with dismal grades, smirked across the table. "Do not worry, Claire. Community college is completely respectable." The nonchalant malice in her speech made my chest tighten, but I pressed on. "Actually, I have already applied for more financial aid. I'm also looking into work-study programs. I have it figured out." "Always so independent," Mom added in a phony, pleased tone that managed to sound condescending. "Just like when you were small, Richard. Do you remember how she never sought help with anything?" This was their method of rewriting history. I had not chosen to be independent. I was compelled to be since they were too busy attending to Ivy's every wish to notice my presence. Ivy's countenance deteriorated as the conversation progressed. She despised it when others turned their attention away from her, even for a brief moment. Over the next few days, she increased her normal antics. She accidentally spilled coffee on my laptop, forcing me to spend money I didn't have for repairs. She spread rumors at school that I had lied about my scholarship. She even called Northwestern's admissions office pretending to be me and attempted to revoke my acceptance. Fortunately, they requested verification, which she couldn't supply. The breaking point occurred when Grandma Eleanor was admitted to the hospital. Grandma Eleanor was Dad's mother and the only family member to ever offer me genuine affection. She had always seen through Ivy's charade and was not ashamed to point out my parents' preference. She was 78 years old, diabetic, and had been having health problems for several months. When she collapsed at home and shattered her hip, we all went to County General Hospital. Grandma Eleanor was scheduled for surgery the following morning. The entire family was present, aunts, uncles, cousins. For once, I felt as though I belonged anywhere. Grandma continued asking for me, directly wanting to hold my hand and talk about college. She was extremely proud of my scholarship, gushing to every nurse who walked by. "My granddaughter Claire is going to Northwestern," she'd say, her eyes beaming despite the painkillers. "She's going to become a journalist, going to transform the planet." Ivy despised every second of it. The surgery went well, although Grandma had to stay an extra few days for monitoring. On the 3rd day, the majority of my extended relatives had gone home, leaving only my parents, Ivy, and me. We'd been taking turns staying with Grandma, and now it was my turn to do the evening watch. Around 8 p.m., I decided to get some coffee from the vending machine on the first floor. The hospital had a central stairwell that connected all 5 stories wide, well-lit stairs with security cameras on each landing. I preferred taking the stairs to the elevator because it was typically faster and allowed me to think. I was returning up with 2 cups of coffee, one for me, one for Grandma, when I heard footsteps behind me. I was between the second and third floors when I noticed Ivy following me. She was moving swiftly, her face set in that determined expression she uses when preparing anything. "What are you doing, Ivy?" I called down to her. She didn't respond but kept climbing. Something about her vibe seemed odd, predatory. I quickened my pace, but the coffee cups made it difficult to go rapidly up the steps. That was when she hit. I was about 6 steps away from the third-floor landing when I felt her hands smack into my back with surprising power. The coffee cups flew as I pitched forward, twisting my body to catch myself. The metal edge of a stair grabbed my ribcage and I felt something snap. I crashed down 12 concrete steps, my head bouncing off each one till I collapsed on the second-story landing. The pain was terrible. My left arm was bent in an unusual position. Blood was collecting beneath my brow, and each breath felt like fire in my chest. I could taste copper in my lips and hear an unusual ringing in my ears. Through the cloud of misery, I noticed Ivy standing at the top of the steps. She didn't rush to help me. She wasn't calling for help. She was just standing there looking down at me with a happy face. Then she smiled this icy, triumphant expression that I'll never forget and stated 5 words that are imprinted in my memory: "You deserved it, you." Then she began screaming, "Help! Someone help! My sister slid down the stairs!" Within seconds, the stairs were packed with people, nurses, orderlies, security guards, and my parents who must have been nearby. As the medical team attempted to stabilize me, Ivy gave the best performance of her life. "I just came to find her," she sobbed and threw herself into Mom's arms. She was taking so long with the coffee, and I was concerned. When I reached the steps, I saw her fall. She just missed a step and tumbled down. It happened so quickly. My parents immediately went into protection mode. Not for me lying broken on the ground, but for Ivy. "It was an accident, correct, Ivy?" Mom replied, stroking Ivy's hair as if she had been harmed. "Some clumsy people just don't watch where they're going," Dad explained, hardly looking at me while the paramedics worked. "Claire has always been prone to accidents. Children that are prone to accidents are almost usually injured." Mom nodded, her voice filled with that usual tone of resigned displeasure, as if my injuries were simply another inconvenience I had caused. I attempted to talk to tell them what actually happened, but my jaw wasn't working properly, and any attempt to speak shot lightning bolts of anguish through my skull. All I could do was lie there watching my family comfort my assailant while dismissing me as a nuisance. But here's something neither of us knew at the time. County General Hospital recently improved its security system. The new cameras didn't merely cover the halls and rooms. They documented every inch of the stairwells with crystal-clear HD footage and audio recordings. Nurse Grace Turner, the head nurse on the 3rd floor, had seen it all. Donna was a 25-year hospital veteran, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had witnessed every type of family conflict imaginable. She was walking around the corner to the stairway when she overheard Ivy's initial comment to me. Something about Ivy's tone caused her to hesitate and look around the corner. She noticed Ivy following me up the stairs with determined determination. She noticed the push. She saw me fall. She noticed Ivy's happy grin before the crocodile tears began, and she pressed record on her phone to capture Ivy's confession. "You deserved it, you." While the medical team carried me onto a stretcher, Donna silently made her way to the security office. She spoke with Mark Sanders, the chief of hospital security, and they both reviewed the camera footage. The angles were great. You could see everything from different angles, including Ivy's purposeful push and her subsequent satisfied reaction. Donna also provided a phone tape that clearly captured Ivy's confession, as well as my parents' disdainful remarks regarding my tendency to get into accidents. Curtis immediately contacted the police. I spent the following 6 hours in surgery. I had a concussion, 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, a fractured left arm, and internal bleeding that necessitated emergency treatment. The breathing tube was required due to a ruptured lung and to keep my airway clean during the complicated surgery to treat the internal damage. My parents once paid me a visit in the ICU and stayed for exactly 10 minutes before declaring they needed to get Ivy home since she had been traumatized by watching the accident. They left me alone with my injuries and a generic get-well-soon card that they definitely took from the hospital gift store. But Grandma Eleanor refused to leave. Despite her own recovery, she asked the medical staff to transport her to my room in her wheelchair. She cried while holding my uninjured hand. She really cried, not the performative weeping that Ivy specialized in. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she said. "I'm very sorry they treated you this way, but I see you. I have always seen you." She was present when Detective Carmen Hayes arrived the following morning. Detective Morales was an experienced investigator for the county's domestic violence section. She had viewed the security footage and listened to Donna's audio. She had also done background checks and determined that this was not Ivy's first violent episode. She'd been dismissed from school twice for fighting and had a sealed juvenile record of assault, which my parents had managed to seal using their connections. "Claire, Detective Morales replied gently. "I need to ask you a few questions regarding what happened yesterday, but first I'd like to let you know that we have video proof of the incident. You are now safe, and we will see that justice is done." I told her everything. Years of abuse, the bias, Ivy's behavior, becoming increasingly out of control, and what exactly transpired on those steps. Detective Morales videotaped every word, and Grandma Eleanor confirmed the family dynamics she had watched over the years. When my parents arrived at the hospital that afternoon, they were not alone. Detective Morales was waiting for them, as was Officer Johnson from the Juvenile Division. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson," Detective Morales remarked, "we need to speak with you about the incident involving your daughters yesterday." Dad quickly shifted into defensive mode. "It was a tragic accident. Ivy is devastated. She's been experiencing dreams about seeing her sister fall." "Actually, sir, it wasn't an accident," Detective Morales explained gently. "We have security tape that shows Ivy purposely pushing Claire down the stairs. We also have an audio clip of Ivy's confession just after the attack." Mom's face turned white. "That is impossible. Ivy will never—" "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to listen to this recording." Detective Morales played Donna's phone recording. Ivy's voice came through clearly. "You deserved it, you." The hush that ensued was deafening. My parents then spoke out, disregarding my injuries and labeling me as accident-prone, despite the fact that their other daughter had just attempted to kill me. Dad's political instincts came first. He was a city councilman and he saw how horrible things looked. "Detective, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. Ivy is only a child and she's been under immense stress with her grandmother's hospitalization." "Mr. Peterson," Detective Morales interrupted, "your 17-year-old daughter committed severe assault on your other daughter, causing life-threatening injuries. The stress of a family situation does not justify attempted murder." The word murder hung in the air like a bomb. Ivy was arrested that evening at our residence. The charges were significant aggravated assault and assault with the intent to cause serious bodily harm. And because it happened at a hospital, there are additional charges for endangering patients and personnel. My parents quickly recruited Thomas Whitman, the state's most expensive criminal defense attorney, who specialized in defending wealthy families' children. They also engaged a public relations firm to manipulate the narrative, as Dad's political future was at jeopardy. However, the evidence was overwhelming. The security tape went viral after someone at the hospital shared it to the local media. The footage was damning. You could witness Ivy's methodical approach, the premeditated push, my helpless fall, and her pleased look afterwards. The recording of her confession, along with my parents' victim blaming, exacerbated the situation. The public's reaction was quick and nasty. Dad's political opponents demanded his resignation, claiming that anyone who couldn't protect one child from another had no business making choices that harmed the entire community's children. Mom lost her position on the school board after her parents requested she resign. The media's interest was tremendous. Our local newspaper, the Herald Tribune, published a series of investigative pieces on the subject titled, "The Golden Child When Family Favoritism Turns Deadly." Veronica Clark, the reporter, conducted considerable research on our family's history and interviewed hundreds of people who had witnessed the dysfunction. Throughout the years, the stories depicted a heartbreaking image of a family system that had been fractured for years. Teachers recalled situations in which Ivy was discovered cheating or bullying other kids, only for my parents to show up and resolve the issues through donations or political pressure. Neighbors said they saw Ivy damage my possessions in the yard, while my parents watched from the window without intervening. One particularly damaging item included an interview with Mrs. Thompson, my middle school guidance counselor. She disclosed that I had approached her several times in 7th and 8th school, displaying signs of emotional distress and requesting to speak with someone about problems at home. Every time she tried to contact my parents to set up family counseling, they rejected her worries and accused her of overstepping her boundaries. Claire was clearly crying out for help, Mrs. Thompson explained to the reporter. But every adult who attempted to intervene was turned down by parents who refused to admit there was a problem. That little girl suffered in silence for years because the individuals who should have protected her were too concerned with maintaining their perfect family image. According to the stories, this isn't the first time someone in our extended family has raised concern about Ivy's behavior. Great-Aunt Margaret, my grandmother's sister, had written a letter to my parents 3 years before after Ivy had purposefully smashed many family artifacts during a holiday gathering. Great-Aunt Margaret later gave this letter to prosecutors while testifying about the family relationships she had witnessed over the years. My parents replied by excluding Great-Aunt Margaret from all family functions and forbade her from contacting either Ivy or me. The media's focus stretched beyond our immediate family. The articles looked at how privileged families frequently concealed their children's aggressive behavior, using wealth and social ties to avoid consequences. Dad's political career became a case study in how personal corruption can spread to public service. Several of Dad's old coworkers came forward with stories of how he exploited his position to help Ivy evade punishment for her crimes. When she was discovered vandalizing school property in her sophomore year, her father allegedly urged the school board to dismiss the charges in exchange for a large payment to the athletic department. When she was detained for underage drinking at a party, Dad called in favor with the police chief to get the charges dropped. The trial revealed that Ivy had been in a catastrophic car accident 6 months before attacking me. She'd been driving under the influence and collided with a parked automobile, incurring thousands of dollars in damage. Instead of facing the repercussions, my parents completely covered up the incident, paying for the repairs themselves and threatening the car owner with legal action if they reported it to insurance or the police. "We were protecting Ivy's future," Mom had stated during her deposition, clearly missing the irony that their protection had allowed Ivy to almost murder me. This vehicle accident disclosure was especially significant since it demonstrated that Ivy's violence was not restricted to family members. She'd been endangering innocent strangers as well, with my parents' full knowledge and assistance. During the trial, the prosecution called in Dr. Michael Harris, a forensic psychologist who specializes in sibling abuse cases. His testimony was devastating for Ivy's defense. "What we see in this case is not a momentary lapse in judgment or a stress-induced breakdown," Dr. Harris told the jurors. "We detect a trend of rising antisocial behavior that has been encouraged and facilitated by parental partiality over the years. The defendant realized she could attack her sister without repercussions, and this pattern of behavior naturally led to more serious violence." Dr. Harris also testified regarding the premeditation of the attack. The defendant's actions in the weeks preceding the assault, researching the victim's routines, scoping the location, and making threatening words to many people, show apparent planning and intent. This was hardly a spontaneous display of sibling rivalry. This was an attempted murder motivated by jealousy and made possible by years of family dysfunction. Ivy's actions during the trial also worked against her. Despite her lawyer's advice, she was unable to maintain her innocent demeanor under pressure. She was often observed rolling her eyes while witnesses spoke about my injuries. She smirked as evidence of her premeditation was presented and displayed evident rage when testimonies depicted her poorly. The jury noticed everything. One especially upsetting experience occurred when crime scene images of my injuries were displayed. While everyone else in the courtroom appeared shocked, Ivy was captured on camera looking bored and checking her phone. The image of her callous indifference while viewing photographs of the harm she had inflicted made the top page of every local newspaper the next day. But the moment that clinched her fate was during cross-examination when Prosecutor Walsh inquired about her love for me. "Ivy, do you love your sister?" Prosecutor Walsh inquired. Ivy's attorney objected, but the judge accepted the inquiry. Ivy paused for a long moment, seemingly unsure how to respond. Finally, she stated, "I don't think about Claire much one way or the other." "Don't you think about the sister you almost killed?" "I didn't try to kill her," Ivy retorted. "If I wanted her dead, she'd be dead." The courtroom became silent. Even Ivy's own lawyer appeared terrified. "So you mean you could have killed her if you wanted to?" Prosecutor Walsh pressed. Ivy discovered her error too late. "That's not what I meant, Ivy." "What did you mean?" "I meant to say it was just a push. I didn't expect her to get hurt so terribly, but you did plan to push her down the stairs." Ivy looked desperately at her lawyer, but the harm was already done. "I was angry. She was garnering all the attention with her ridiculous scholarship and college ambitions. Grandma was constantly gushing over her and raving about how proud she was. It was not fair. So you chose to injure her. I decided to teach her a lesson." Ivy explained, her voice rising with rage. "She needs to understand that she is not special. She's not better than me simply because she received a scholarship. I should be getting attention, not her. And you thought shoving her down concrete stairs would teach her the lesson. I thought it would humble her." Ivy responded, utterly unaware of how her words sounded. "I thought maybe if she got hurt, people would stop treating her like she was so important and remember that I exist too." The jury's deliberation lasted less than 2 hours. During my rehabilitation, I discovered additional alarming details about Ivy's actions. While I was in the ICU, Detective Morales interrogated a number of our mutual acquaintances and Ivy's classmates. What she discovered revealed an even darker side to my sister's genuine personality. Rachel, Ivy's former best friend, came forward with recordings of talks in which Ivy plainly expressed her desire to get rid of me. In one particularly terrifying audio message, Ivy stated, "Claire believes she's great with her scholarship and college plans. Someone should knock her down a few pegs, literally." Another classmate, Ethan, reported that Ivy had spent weeks investigating my class schedule and routines before the hospital event. She'd even asked him about the layout of County General Hospital, stating she was only concerned about where our grandmother was staying. The most surprising testimony came from Ivy's ex-boyfriend, Caleb. He informed investigators that during one of their visits to see Grandma Eleanor, Ivy showed him the hospital stairway, pointing out the lack of surveillance cameras, which, unbeknownst to her, had recently been installed. She had mentioned how easy accidents could occur in an area like this, and how some people simply do not pay attention to where they are going. The evidence presented a picture of premeditation that extended much beyond a brief loss of control. Meanwhile, my parents' actions during my rehabilitation were telling. They paid me 3 visits during my 2-week hospital stay, each lasting less than 20 minutes. The chats were stilted and uncomfortable, with them plainly more worried with the potential legal repercussions than my safety. During their second visit, Mom had the nerve to urge that I reconsider filing charges against Ivy. "Think about the family," she urged, sitting uncomfortably in the visitor's chair. "This type of publicity might wreck us all. Ivy is merely a child who committed a mistake." "Is there a mistake?" I said, my voice coming from the breathing tube I needed during surgery. "She tried to kill me." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "That's quite dramatic, Claire. The doctor said, you'll be fine." "I have a punctured lung, 3 broken ribs, and a concussion that could have lasting effects," I told him. "If I'd hit my head at a different angle, I'd be dead." "But you didn't," Mom replied immediately. "You are going to recover entirely. There's no reason to ruin Ivy's future over something that turned out well." Their cruel statement struck me like a physical blow. Even while lying in a hospital bed with monitors monitoring my vital signs, they wanted me to shield Ivy from the consequences of her conduct. Grandma Eleanor, who had been silently knitting in the corner, eventually spoke up. "Diane Richard, for the past 17 years I've seen you enable that girl, but this violates every line. Claire might have died due to Ivy's jealousy. And you're more concerned with preserving your lovely baby than with helping the wounded daughter." "Mother, you don't grasp the complexity," Dad continued. "I understand perfectly," Grandma Eleanor said, her voice harsh with rage. "I realize you produced a monster and are now more concerned with damage control than justice. Well, I'm not going to stand for it anymore." That was the day Grandma Eleanor asked the court to become my guardian. The court process uncovered even more unsettling details regarding my family's dynamics. During the custody evaluation, Dr. Lillian Brooks, a court-appointed psychologist, evaluated each of us individually. Her report was harsh in its evaluation of my parents' treatment of me. Claire exhibits classic symptoms of scapegoat child syndrome, Dr. Gutierrez stated in her evaluation. She has been systematically devalued, blamed, and emotionally neglected throughout her childhood. Her sister has been promoted to nearly untouchable prominence within the family hierarchy. This interaction created a powder keg environment in which Ivy felt entitled to hurt Claire without any consequences. Claire felt she had no voice or importance in her own family. The report also highlighted that my parents denied their role in facilitating abusive behavior and exhibited an astounding lack of empathy for their afflicted daughter. Dr. Gutierrez advocated supervised visitation and required family therapy for my parents if they wanted to reestablish their relationship with me. However, the most damaging discovery came from Ivy herself. While I was still recovering, Ivy was living with our Aunt Carol, Dad's sister, who lived across town. Aunt Carol had always been the family's black sheep. She'd been criticizing my parents' favoritism for years and had gradually been barred from family events as a result. 3 weeks after the attack, Aunt Carol contacted Detective Morales with alarming information. Ivy, who appeared to be certain that she would not face any consequences, had been gloating to our younger cousin about what she had done. She told my daughter Melissa that Claire had finally gotten what she deserved. Aunt Carol said, her voice quivering with rage. She stated that she had been preparing for it for weeks, waiting for the ideal opportunity. She even laughed at how our parents rushed to comfort her instead of Claire. But Ivy's most terrifying comment was still to come. If Claire hadn't survived, things would have been much better. Then I'd be the sole daughter, just as I should have been all along. Aunt Carol had taped this chat on her phone, presenting prosecutors with additional evidence of Ivy's callousness and premeditation. The recording was shown during Ivy's bail hearing, and the judge promptly revoked her release, ordering her to be held in juvenile custody until trial. This defendant shows a complete lack of remorse and a continued threat to the victim, Judge Evelyn Grant added. Her own statements imply that she considers this not as an error or a moment of poor judgment, but as a successful attack on her sister. She simply regrets not causing more harm. As the trial came, my parents' despair increased. They recruited not only Thomas Whitman as Ivy's criminal lawyer, but also a group of character witnesses, professional psychiatrists, and image consultants. They squandered their life savings and mortgaged the house to pay for Ivy's defense, evidently hoping that enough money would solve the situation. They also increased the pressure on me to reconsider testifying against Ivy. Dad even came to Grandma Eleanor's house one evening, intoxicated and angry, asking to talk with me. "You're destroying this family," he said from the front porch with Grandma Eleanor standing between us. "Ivy made one mistake, and you're going to put her in prison. What kind of a sister would do that?" "The kind whose sister tried to murder her," I explained quietly from behind the screen door. "The kind who's tired of being treated like garbage while Ivy gets away with everything. She is your little sister. You are supposed to protect her." The irony of his comments was astounding. When has Ivy ever protected me? When did you ever protect me from her? Dad couldn't answer the question since we all knew the truth. I'd never been protected by my own family. I had been the sacrifice made to keep Ivy happy and sustain their comfortable belief that she was flawless. During this time, I also realized the scope of Ivy's manipulation. Over the years, friends and family members began coming forward with experiences they'd previously kept private. They were either loyal to my parents or did not understand the full gravity of what was going on. Mrs. Sanchez, my old English teacher, disclosed that Ivy once tried to undermine my prospects of getting selected for the school newspaper by accusing me of plagiarizing an essay. Only Mrs. Sanchez's decision to verify the accusation kept Ivy from succeeding. Our neighbor, Mr. Johnson, confirmed that he had observed Ivy deliberately let air out of my bicycle tires numerous times, but he had not said anything because he did not want to get involved in the family company. Our family doctor, Dr. Joyce Park, made an even more unsettling disclosure. When I was 15, my doctor spotted finger-shaped marks on my upper arms during a normal visit. When she asked about them, Ivy swiftly explained that I had earned them during a clumsy fall while we were playing. Dr. Park had noticed an inconsistency between the bruises and Ivy's account, but had accepted it after my parents confirmed Ivy's story. "I should have pushed harder," Dr. Park told Detective Morales during the probe. "But the parents seemed to love and care about both girls. I never guessed that one was abusing the other despite their knowledge and protection." The trend was evident. Ivy had been physically and emotionally assaulting me for many years. My parents either turned a blind eye or actively covered for her. The hospital stairway incident was not an isolated outburst of wrath. It was the culmination of years of growing violence which my family had facilitated. The experiment lasted 3 months. Ivy's defense team attempted everything. They claimed she was experiencing a mental health crisis. They said that she was overburdened by family stress and acted rashly. They even attempted to portray me as the aggressor, stating that I had been abusing Ivy for years and she had snapped in self-defense. But the evidence disproved every argument. Grace Turner testified about what she had seen and filmed. Curtis Valdez showed the CCTV film frame by frame, demonstrating the premeditated nature of the attack. Detective Morales described Ivy's violent background and the pattern of abuse I had experienced. Grandma Eleanor, despite her age and recent surgery, insisted on testifying. She took the stand and meticulously recalled years of witnessing my parents favor Ivy while blaming me. She discussed Ivy's manipulative techniques and the family's supportive conduct. "That girl has been headed toward this moment for years," Grandma Eleanor continued, pointing squarely at Ivy. "And those parents of hers paved the road with their willful blindness and favoritism." The most damning evidence came from Dr. Alan Carter, the emergency room doctor who treated me. He emphasized that my injuries were consistent with a deliberate push, not an accidental fall. The force required to do such damage demonstrated intent, not carelessness. But Ivy's destiny was decided when she took the stand to defend herself. Ivy had always been able to enchant adults with her naive actions, and her lawyers hoped her testimony would elicit sympathy. They were wrong. Ivy's facade slipped completely during her cross-examination by prosecutor Erica Nolan. Ivy prosecutor Walsh stated, "After pushing your sister down the stairs, why didn't you call for aid right away?" "I did call for help," Ivy stated according to her script. "But not immediately. The security tape shows you standing there for a few seconds looking down at Claire. What were your thoughts throughout those seconds?" Ivy's eyes flared with rage. "I was shocked. I couldn't believe she was so clumsy." "You weren't astonished, were you? You were satisfied because you had just done exactly what you set out to do." "That's not true. So why did you remark you deserved it, you, when your sister was bleeding on the floor?" Ivy's expression contorted with wrath. "Because she deserved it. She's always been jealous of me. She's always trying to draw attention to herself with silly accomplishments, like going to Northwestern and making Grandma fawn over her. She thinks she's exceptional, but she's not. She has always been nothing." The courtroom became dead silent. Ivy understood what she had said and tried to backtrack, but the damage had been done. The jurors had seen the actual Ivy Peterson, not the nice, traumatized little sister, but a calculating abuser who attempted to murder her sibling out of envy. The ruling arrived in less than 2 hours, guilty on all charges. Because Ivy was 17, she was tried as a juvenile, but she received the maximum penalty available, detention till age 21, 4 years following 3 years of supervised probation. She was also ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation and treatment. Child Protective Services investigated my parents for facilitating the abuse. Although no criminal charges were brought against them, the inquiry revealed a pattern of neglect and emotional abuse. This culminated in a court order for family treatment and supervised visitation. Dad lost his re-election attempt by the greatest margin in county history. Mom never received her school board position back. They lost the majority of their social group and had to sell the house to cover Ivy's legal fees and continued treatment. However, true justice was served in more intimate personal settings. Despite her age and health difficulties, Grandma Eleanor petitioned the court to become my legal guardian during my senior year of high school. The judge who presided over Ivy's trial granted the request instantly. Living with Grandma Eleanor altered everything. For the first time in my life, I was in a home where I felt cherished, where my successes counted, somebody was proud of me. She assisted me in processing years of trauma while also supporting my college plans. Northwestern University, learning about my circumstances from news coverage, increased my scholarship to a full ride, and I received additional support for housing and living expenses. The first year, the public attention had transformed me from a victim to a symbol of resilience. The university wanted to be a part of my success story. I began college in the fall of my recovery, around 10 months after the incident. My physical injuries were healed, but I still had some numbness in my left arm due to the fracture and associated nerve irritation. The emotional healing process remained ongoing, but being away from my toxic home environment was quite beneficial. Ivy served her full term until the age of 21. She was released 6 months ago and is now living in a halfway house while on probation. She must stay at least 500 feet away from me at all times and may not contact me directly or through third parties. My parents attempted to reconcile when Ivy was sentenced only to realize they had lost both children. They sent letters, flowers, and gifts, and all were returned unopened. They arrived at Grandma Eleanor's house wailing and begging for forgiveness, claimed they were duped by Ivy, and had no idea how horrible things were. Grandma Eleanor sent them away with words I will never forget. You did not simply fail Claire as parents. You failed as humans. You enabled a monster and nearly killed your other child. You don't deserve forgiveness, and you certainly don't deserve her. I am now in my 4th year at Northwestern, majoring in investigative journalism with a minor in criminal justice. I'd like to tell stories about those without voices who are disregarded or dismissed by systems designed to protect them. My experience showed me that justice is not guaranteed. Sometimes you have to battle for it, and sometimes you need people who can see the truth when others choose to ignore it. Grace Turner and I remain in touch. She has been like a second grandmother to me. I credit her quick thinking for saving my life. If she hadn't taped Ivy's confession and notified security, it would have been my word versus Ivy's. And we all know how it would have ended with my parents. Detective Morales also makes infrequent appearances. She informed me that domestic violence situations like mine, sibling abuse facilitated by parental favoritism, are more common than most people know, but they are frequently dismissed as sibling rivalry. My case helped to improve her department's policies for investigating family abuse. The security film from my attack is now utilized in hospital staff training courses, teaching people how to spot indicators of familial abuse and domestic violence. Donna's prompt action is cited as an example of how healthcare personnel may be effective advocates for vulnerable people. I don't spend much time thinking about Ivy anymore. The wrath I carried for so long has essentially dissolved into indifference. She is a cautionary tale of what occurs when poisonous behavior is tolerated rather than corrected. She lost everything: her family, her future, her freedom, because she couldn't bear to watch me thrive. Sometimes I wonder if things could have gone differently if my parents had intervened sooner, if they'd asked Ivy for help rather than making excuses, if they had treated us both with the same love and respect. But I've learned to avoid wasting energy on hypotheticals. The past cannot be changed, but it is up to me to build the future. I am graduating this year and have already been accepted into Columbia's graduate journalism program. I have a summer internship lined up with the Chicago Tribune, where I will be working on their investigative team. I'm in a healthy relationship with Lucas, a fellow journalism student who shows me the respect and care I never realized I deserved. Most significantly, I've realized that family is more than just blood. Grandma Eleanor, Donna, Detective Morales. My teachers and my pals, these folks choose to care about me, to encourage me, and to believe in me. That signifies more than any biological link ever could. The girl who was pushed down those hospital stairs 3 years ago was broken more than just her bones. However, sometimes being broken is the first step toward creating something stronger. I'm not the same person I was before the attack. I'm grateful for that. I'm stronger, more independent, and more aware of my own worth. Ivy believed she was destroying me when she pushed me down those steps. Instead, she freed me, and that, more than any legal decision, is the sweetest form of vengeance.